Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to Nine Nar Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book, Reconstruction, Updated Edition, America's Unfinished Revolution, 1863 to 1877 by historian Eric Foner, offers a sweeping, authoritative account of the United States' effort to remake the nation after the Civil War. Covering the period from the Emancipation Proclamation through the contested end of federal Reconstruction, the book explains how freedom was defined, defended, and ultimately restricted in the former Confederacy and across the country. Foner frames Reconstruction not as a brief epilogue to the war, but as a transformative struggle over citizenship, labor, political power, and the meaning of the Constitution. Readers are guided through debates inside Washington, the aspirations and organizing of formerly enslaved people, and the fierce white resistance that sought to restore racial hierarchy. The updated edition highlights why this era continues to shape modern arguments about civil rights, voting, federal authority, and historical memory. It is both a narrative history and an analysis of institutions and grassroots politics during a revolutionary but unfinished moment. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, freedom redefined, emancipation, labor, and the postwar South. A central theme is how emancipation forced Americans to confront what freedom actually meant in daily life. The end of slavery did not automatically create economic independence, personal security, or equal standing before the law. Foner explores the transition from slave labor to new arrangements such as wage labor, sharecropping, and tenant farming, showing how these systems often preserved planters' control while limiting Black autonomy. The book emphasizes that freedom involved family reunification, movement, education, religious independence, and the right to bargain for work, not just the absence of bondage. It also explains how federal policies and agencies, including wartime and post-war interventions, tried to manage the upheaval, with mixed results and limited resources. By tracing struggles on plantations and in towns, the narrative connects economic change to political conflict, land, contracts, and violence were inseparable from debates over rights. Reconstruction becomes a test of whether the former slave society could be reorganized on fair terms, and why so many freed people recognized that political power was essential to protect gains in labor and community life. Secondly, building a new constitutional order, citizenship, and federal power, Reconstruction is presented as a constitutional revolution that reshaped the relationship between the individual, the states, and the federal government. Foner highlights how the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments aim to abolish slavery, establish birthright citizenship, guarantee equal protection, and protect voting rights. The book explains the intense political battles behind these changes, including conflicts between presidents and Congress, and disagreements among Republicans over how far to go in enforcing equality. Reconstruction legislation, military districts, and federal oversight of elections reflected an expanded national role, yet the durability of these reforms depended on enforcement and public will. Foner also shows the limits of constitutional language, when courts and local authorities interpreted rights narrowly or refused to protect them. The era introduced enduring questions. Can the federal government secure civil rights when states resist? How should citizenship be defined after mass emancipation? What counts as equal protection in practice? By connecting constitutional change to lived experience, the book demonstrates that Reconstruction created tools later used by civil rights movements, while also revealing how fragile those tools can be when political coalitions fracture. Thirdly, Black political mobilization and the promise of democratic experiment. A defining accomplishment of Reconstruction was the rapid organization of African American political life and civic institutions. Foner describes how freed people built churches, schools, mutual aid societies, and political networks that became foundations for collective action. With the expansion of male suffrage, Black voters and office holders played major roles in Southern politics, often in coalition with white Republicans, including migrants from the North and Southern Unionists. The book portrays Reconstruction governments as ambitious experiments that sought broader public education, more equitable taxation, infrastructure development, and revised legal systems. It also addresses the complexity of these coalitions, the constraints of poverty and violence, and the constant need to defend fragile democratic gains. By focusing on political participation rather than treating freed people as passive recipients of policy, Foner emphasizes agency, leadership, and strategic choices. The narrative also explains why symbolic achievements such as office holding mattered, representation shaped lawmaking, public services, and the meaning of citizenship. At the same time, the book does not romanticize the period, showing internal divisions, corruption accusations used as political weapons, and the structural obstacles that prevented many reforms, especially land redistribution, from becoming reality. Fourthly, counter-revolution, white resistance, violence, and the overthrow of Reconstruction. Foner devotes major attention to the organized effort to reverse Reconstruction and restore white supremacy. This counter-revolution operated through formal politics and clandestine terror. The book explains how groups such as the Ku Klux Klan and related paramilitary organizations used intimidation, assault, and murder to suppress black voting, punish Republican activists, and reassert planter and democratic control. Violence was not random. It was political strategy aimed at dismantling biracial democracy. Foner also traces how propaganda about corruption and misrule helped justify restoring pre-war elites, even when those narratives ignored the achievements of Reconstruction governments. As Northern commitment waned, enforcement weakened, and federal intervention became contested, white supremacist campaigns gained traction. The book highlights the interplay between economic pressure, racial ideology, and electoral manipulation, including the use of fraud and coercion. It also notes the role of the judiciary and shifting national priorities in narrowing the scope of federal protection. By presenting the fall of Reconstruction as an active overthrow rather than an inevitable fade, Foner underscores contingency. Different choices could have sustained reforms longer. The end result was a new system of racial control that limited rights and set the stage for decades of segregation and disenfranchisement. Lastly, legacy and memory, why Reconstruction remains unfinished. The book argues that Reconstruction is best understood as an unfinished revolution whose outcomes continue to shape American life. Foner examines how the period left behind constitutional principles and political precedents that later generations would invoke, while also allowing the establishment of new racial hierarchies that contradicted the promise of emancipation. The contested end of Reconstruction, often associated with political compromise and fatigue, did not resolve the fundamental questions of equality and citizenship. Instead, it shifted the struggle into new arenas: court decisions, local governance, labor systems, and social customs. Foner also addresses how Reconstruction has been remembered and misremembered, noting that interpretations of the era influenced policy and public attitudes for generations. Understanding the era clarifies why debates over voting access, civil rights enforcement, and federal responsibility recur in American politics. The book links historical actors to modern dilemmas without reducing the past to present-day slogans, showing that Reconstruction was both a moment of remarkable democratic possibility and a warning about backlash. Its legacy includes both the foundations of civil rights law and the long shadow of disenfranchisement, making the era essential for anyone trying to grasp the roots of contemporary inequality and political conflict. In conclusion, this book is well suited for readers who want a serious, evidence-driven understanding of the Civil War aftermath, including students, educators, history enthusiasts, and anyone trying to make sense of current debates about citizenship, voting rights, and racial justice. It benefits the reader by explaining how institutions and everyday life interact. Constitutional amendments, party politics, labor systems, and grassroots organizing all shaped what freedom could become. By following both national decision-makers and local communities, the book helps readers see how rights are established, enforced, and sometimes dismantled. That perspective is useful beyond history, because it clarifies how democratic gains can be fragile when violence, disinformation, and political compromise erode protections. Compared with many Reconstruction surveys, Foner's work is widely regarded for its depth, narrative clarity, and balanced attention to African American agency alongside governmental policy. It does not treat the era as a simple failure or a morality tale, but as a complex struggle with real achievements and real reversals. The updated edition strengthens its value for buyers who want a definitive single volume that connects foundational constitutional change to the long arc of American democracy, making it a lasting reference rather than a quick overview. If you would like to support Eric Foner, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.